Hi, guys. Welcome to another segment of Legal Friday with me, Francine. So today we're going to talk about the exclusive rights of a copyright owner. Now, some of you are probably thinking, and I can already see your brains working, you're probably thinking, oh my God, that is so basic. I already know that stuff. Well, maybe you do, and maybe you don't. I would venture to say that most people who think they know this basic stuff, in fact, don't. And how do I know that? Because pretty much every single copyright infringement lawsuit is based on the concept that the person who's being sued does not know, or they know and don't care that they are using or engaging in the use of someone else's rights without their permission. So I think it's important today to understand what the rights of a copyright owner are for two reasons. Number one, for those of you that are creators, you need to know what your rights are, what your protected rights are. But the second reason why it's important is so that you are also aware of what you shouldn't be doing without permission with regard to someone else's rights. So let's take a look. All right. And you know, I like these visuals just because I think visuals make it a little more appealing. So the first right is the right to reproduce. Reproduce, duplicate, another way of saying it, it's the right to make copies. So you as a copyright owner, you have the right to reproduce your work as long as you haven't given your work or the rights to your work or a portion of those rights to someone else. So let's say, for example, you write an article and you just write this article for yourself, period. You write it so that you can post it on your own website. You have the right to reproduce that article. You can make copies of it, distribute it to as many people as you want, but you have the right. So let's say you write that article, you can make 100 copies of it and you can stick it in your marketing package. You can give it to your friends, to your family, anybody you want. You have the right to reproduce that work. What if you self-publish a book? And I distinguish self-publishing from being published by a publisher. If you self-publish your work, you have the right to reproduce that work as often as you want. You can make 100 copies, you can make 1,000 copies, you can make 10,000 copies. If you self-publish that work, you have all the rights and you can do with it what you please. The next right of a copyright owner is the right to display. So let's say, for example, you're a photographer and you create these beautiful pictures. You can display your work on your website. That's a right that you have. You can also let someone else display it on their site, but let's just stick with your site. You have the right to display your work on your website. That is a right you have as a copyright owner. The right to display your original work of art or authorship that's been reduced to a tangible format. You also have the right to distribute your work. So let's go back to the article that was reproduced in number 1 in this one here. So let's say you write an article, excuse me, and you haven't written it for someone else. You haven't been commissioned by either a newspaper or a magazine or some other person to write this article. This is an article you've written on your own and you're posting it, you know, on your website. You're displaying it on your website. But let's say you also want to put it in your marketing package and you want to distribute it to, let's say, 50 potential clients. You have the right to do that because it is your original work of art or authorship. So you have the right to distribute your work. You also have the right to perform. So let's say you're a musician and you write music like that fabulous Alicia Keys, who I adore. So Alicia Keys is brilliant, just actually like Taylor Swift. They're both very smart girls. They both write their own music and they perform their own music. So there you go. If you write music, you have the right to perform your music. But you have to make sure you have all those rights. But if you do have all the rights, you have the right to perform. Here's the other thing. If you are the copyright owner, you have the right to create derivative works based on your work. So how does that show up? Let's go back to that article. So let's say you write an article and it's a creative and original piece of work. You have the right to turn that article into a book. And let's say that book, you decide you want to translate that book into 10 languages. You have the right to do that because it's your original work of art. Then let's say you decide, okay, this is a nonfiction book, let's suppose, and you now want to create videos based on that book. You want to create other merchandise. You can do that because the work is yours. This is one of your rights as a copyright owner. You have the right to create derivative works, and a derivative work is just a work derived from something else. But the other the other right you have as a copyright owner, which is really an important one, you have the right to grant someone else to stand in your shoes. So you have the right to grant another person the right to do exactly the same thing you can do. So let's suppose you write a book and a publisher likes your work. Okay, now it's not a self-published work. It's a publishing house that wants to publish your work. You have to give that publisher the right to reproduce your work, the right to display your work, the right to distribute your work. And in some cases, you would also give that publisher the right to create derivative works. So you might give that publisher the right to create audiobooks or ebooks or other merchandise, other derivative products. Those are rights that you can give to someone else. So the same rights that you have, you can also transfer those rights to another person. Why is it really important for you to understand not only that these are your rights, but that these are rights you have to be careful not to encroach? Because if you reproduce someone else's work without their permission, you might easily find yourself in a lawsuit. If you distribute someone else's work without permission, or if you display someone else's work without permission, or if you create derivative works of art based on someone's work without their permission, you potentially could find you on the other side of a lawsuit. So it's really important to be aware of that. I encourage you all to think about it before you start using someone else's work. And we're going to talk about those in later videos. We're going to talk about infringement. We'll talk about some of the defenses to infringement. But for the time being, today it's about you knowing what your rights are. The right to reproduce, the right to display, the right to distribute. Distribute could be sell, license, rent, the right to transfer those rights to someone else. Okay, until next time, I'm Francine, and this is Legal Fridays with me, Francine. Bye for now.